Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on large language models, or LLMs.
Yeah.
And you're really interested in how we can make these massive AI models even better
Yeah.
after they've been trained on so much data.
Right.
We're going way beyond that initial training
Absolutely.
and exploring the cutting edge
That's right.
of what's possible with LLMs.
Yeah, we're talking about all the post-training techniques.
Now, you shared some fascinating research with us.
It's a very exciting area.
Excerpts from a paper with the identifier 2503.0607-V1.
Especially given all the advancements lately with LLMs.
And it's all about this post-training process.
Yes.
And it really seems like it's key to unlocking the full potential of LLMs.
It absolutely is.
So,
Post-training lets us fine-tune these LLMs for particular tasks.
okay.
And it lets us improve their reasoning ability.
Got it.
And generally, it makes them more useful and reliable.
Okay.
It's basically like taking a really bright student
Yeah.
and then giving them specific training
Okay.
for like a career path.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who might need a quick refresher,
Sure.
let's start with the basics.
Of course.
What are LLMs,
Yeah.
and why is post-training so important?
If you can imagine a computer program that's read like almost the entire internet,
Oh, wow.
that's essentially an LLM.
Okay.
It can understand and generate text that sounds like a human wrote it,
Right.
but it really needs guidance to be good
Yeah.
in specific areas.
So we've got this LLM
Yeah.
with a vast knowledge base,
Uh-huh.
but it needs some direction
Exactly.
to really become useful.
That's where post-training comes in.
Okay, now this research paper,
Yeah,
it outlines 5 key paradigms for post-training.
it does.
Fine-tuning,
Yeah,
alignment,
yes.
reasoning, efficiency,
Yeah,
and integration and adaptation.
that's right.
Wow.
There's a lot to cover.
That is a lot to unpack.
It is.
Let's start with fine-tuning.
Okay, so fine-tuning is all about specialization. So let's say we've got an LLM that can write all different kinds of text, but you need it to write really compelling marketing copy.
Yeah.
Fine-tuning would be how you would train it
Right.
on, let's say, a data set of successful marketing campaigns, so it would learn how to write in that style.
It's like giving it a crash course in marketing.
Exactly.
But instead of using textbooks, it's learning from the best.
Exactly.
Okay.
There are actually 2 main approaches to fine-tuning.
Okay.
Supervised fine-tuning, or SFT, uses data sets like Flan and Dolly 15K,
Okay.
which contain a variety of instructions and then the output that should come from those instructions.
So it learns to follow instructions.
Yeah, and how to create the output that you want.
Instead of just generating like random text.
Exactly.
Right.
It's almost like a set of recipes.
Okay.
The other is reinforcement fine-tuning, or RFT.
Got it.
And that uses feedback from a human to shake the model. This is part of what makes LLMs like ChatGPT
Yeah.
so conversational. They
Right.
learn from the way we react,
Yeah.
adjust their response.
It's like training a dog.
It is.
Positive reinforcement for good behavior.
Yes.
And maybe a little correction
Yeah.
when they go off track.
Right.
So the LLM learns to generate text
Uh-huh.
that people like
Yes.
and to avoid things that are considered
Right.
bad or unhelpful.
Yeah. Or just wrong or problematic in any way.
All right, so we've got fine-tuning covered.
Yes.
But what about this idea of alignment?
Okay.
Is that about making sure these LLMs don't turn into evil robots from some sci-fi movie?
Not exactly evil robots, but alignment is definitely about making sure that these really powerful models
Yeah,
operate within human values and ethics
that makes sense.
so that they don't generate, harmful or biased content.
We're giving them so much power, but we want to make sure that
That's
they're
it.
using it responsibly.
We want to make sure they use it responsibly.
How do we go about doing that?
So one very powerful technique is reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF.
Okay.
And essentially humans evaluate what the LLM is putting out,
Right.
and they give positive feedback
Right.
if it's good and negative feedback if
Right.
it's something we don't want.
So if it generates something offensive or inaccurate,
Yes,
it gets a thumbs down.
exactly.
And over time,
Yeah.
it learns to avoid those kinds of outputs.
Exactly. So popular LLMs like GPT-4 and Claude have been trained with RLHF.
Okay.
And that's a big reason why they're so good at following instructions and producing good quality text.
Okay.
Another technique that people are starting to use is direct preference optimization, or DPO.
Okay.
This directly optimizes the model's output based on human preferences.
Oh, okay.
So it's even more efficient.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is?
It's crucial.
Yes.
But it's a lot of work to make
It's a
sure
area.
these LLMs are not only smart, but also responsible.
Exactly. We want these models to be used for good.
Yeah.
We want them to benefit society. And so ensuring that they are aligned with our values is very important.
Now let's move on to reasoning.
Okay.
This is something that I find really fascinating. It's not about generating grammatically correct sentences anymore.
It's not.
We're talking about LLMs that can actually think logically.
Yeah. Reasoning requires the LLM to go beyond just recognizing patterns.
Okay.
It needs to understand how concepts relate to each other
Yeah.
and how to make deductions.
Wow.
And it even needs to solve problems step by step.
So these LLMs are actually starting to think like humans.
Well, they're not quite at human level.
Yeah.
But there have been really impressive advancements.
Okay.
One approach is called self-refine,
Self-refine.
and it lets the model critique and improve its own work.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
It's like having an internal editor
Yeah.
constantly refining his thoughts.
It is. It leads to more logical and consistent reasoning.
So then there's using reinforcement learning, or RL, to train LLMs for reasoning.
Yes.
One that really stands out is DeepSeek R1, which
Well-
uses RL to teach the model reasoning from scratch.
From scratch, yeah.
Cold start.
Cold start.
That sounds intense.
It is.
So it's learning to reason
Yeah.
without any prior knowledge.
You got it.
Wow.
DeepSeek R1 treats reasoning like a Markov decision process, or MDP,
Okay.
which is something that is used a lot in RL.
Okay.
It has a reward system
Okay.
and a policy that guides what it does,
Right.
and a transition function that describes how its actions change its state.
So it's like we're throwing this LLM into the deep end
It is.
and letting it figure out how to swim.
Yes. And it has shown a lot of promise.
This sounds like a game changer.
It does. DeepSeek R1 has shown really impressive reasoning abilities on a variety of tasks. And so it suggests that this cold start RL could be really important for developing
Wow.
even more sophisticated reasoning.
Okay, so this DeepSeek R1
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
It is.
But all of this complex reasoning must take a lot of computing power.
Well, efficiency is super critical.
Yeah.
Especially as these models get bigger and more complicated.
Okay.
We need to make sure that they're fast
Yeah.
and that they don't use too much memory
Yeah.
and that they're accessible for real-world things.
We can't have them using supercomputers
Yes.
for every task.
Right.
So how do we make these AI geniuses more efficient?
So researchers have a number of techniques,
Okay.
including model compression,
Model compression.
parameter-efficient fine-tuning,
Okay.
and knowledge distillation.
All right, break it down for us.
Okay.
What's model compression?
Model compression is about making the model smaller and less complex
Okay.
without sacrificing accuracy.
Is it like squeezing a giant LLM into a tiny box?
It's like a good analogy. It's like if you're packing for a trip,
Yeah.
you wouldn't take your whole wardrobe. You'd just take the essentials and
Right.
pack them efficiently.
So what are some of the techniques?
So one is called quantization,
Quantization.
and that's where we reduce the precision of the numbers that are used in the model.
Yeah.
It's like reducing the number of colors in an image.
Got it.
So you lose a little detail,
Uh-huh.
but it's much more manageable.
Okay.
And then there's pruning, where you get rid of the parameters that don't really matter to the performance.
So it's like Marie Kondoing an LLM,
It is.
getting rid of all the parameters that don't spark joy.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, okay, what about parameter efficient fine tuning?
All right, so imagine you have a really beautifully decorated house,
Okay.
but you only want to redecorate one room.
Yeah.
You wouldn't tear the whole house down.
Right.
So parameter-efficient fine-tuning is similar.
Oh.
Instead of changing all the model's parameters, you just focus on the ones that are important for the task.
That's much more efficient than rebuilding the whole thing.
Exactly. It saves time and resources.
Yeah.
And makes it easier to adapt to new tasks.
It's like a targeted renovation.
It is.
And finally, what about knowledge distillation?
Okay, so knowledge distillation is basically training a smaller model to copy what a bigger model is doing.
So it's like getting the wisdom
Yeah.
of a wise old LLM
It is.
and passing it to a younger, more agile one.
Exactly. The student learns the most important knowledge and skills,
Okay.
but in a much more efficient way.
So it's the best of both worlds.
Yes.
You get the knowledge of the expert
Yeah.
and the efficiency of the student.
Exactly. And this is really useful for when you want to put LLMs on devices with limited power, like a phone
Yeah.
or an embedded system.
Okay, we've covered so much already.
We have.
We've talked about fine-tuning,
Yes.
alignment,
Yes.
reasoning, and
Yeah.
efficiency.
Yep.
All of these are important
Very
in
important.
making LLMs more powerful
Yes.
and more applicable to the real world.
That's right.
But we're just getting started.
We are.
There's one more fascinating paradigm to explore.
There is.
Integration and adaptation.
Yes.
I can't wait to hear about that.
Okay.
But first, let's take a quick break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back to explore the final frontier of LLM post-training.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back and ready to jump into that final frontier
Okay.
of LLM post-training you mentioned.
Right.
Integration and adaptation.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So this is where things get really interesting. This is all about going beyond just text with LLMs
Okay.
into the world of multimodal models.
Multimodal LLMs.
Yes.
So are we talking about models that understand more than just words?
Yes.
Like images
Yes.
and audio, even video?
Exactly. We're moving towards LLMs that can interact with the world
Yeah.
in a much richer and more nuanced way.
So imagine an LLM
Yeah.
that can not only read a news article,
Yeah.
but also watch a related video
Right.
and analyze a relevant chart,
Exactly.
all to better understand a topic.
Yes.
That's mind-blowing.
It is.
It's like giving these LLMs a whole new set of senses
It is.
to perceive the world.
Yeah.
But how do you even begin to teach a model
It is a challenge.
to understand all these different types of data?
Yes, but researchers are making good progress.
Okay.
One key area is modal connection.
Modal connection.
Yes. And that's all about figuring out how to connect and integrate
Okay.
all these different modalities
Yeah.
within the LLM.
It's like building bridges
Yes.
between different types of data.
Yeah, so the model can see the whole picture.
So it's not just about understanding text and images and audio separately,
It's not.
but about connecting the dots between them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there are three main approaches to this.
Okay.
Projection-based, query-based, and fusion-based.
Right.
Projection-based methods basically translate all the different inputs into a unified text embedding space.
So even though the inputs might be different,
Right.
an image, a sound clip, a paragraph of text,
Yeah,
they're all converted into a format that the LLM can process.
that's the idea.
Okay.
One example is Lemma Adapter.
NAM adapter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it takes a powerful language model and then it adds an image encoder. And that allows it to understand images and use them for things like image captioning.
So you could show it a picture of a cat wearing a hat.
Yeah.
And it could actually describe what it's seeing.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It is.
What about these query-based methods?
So query-based methods are like detectives.
Okay.
They use these things called learnable query tokens
Okay.
to get specific information from different modalities.
So instead of just processing everything at once,
Yeah.
it can actually focus
Yeah.
on specific elements within the data.
Exactly.
Okay.
One example is BLIP2,
BLP2.
which uses these things called query transformers
Okay.
to integrate text and visual inputs.
It's like having a superpowered search engine
Yeah.
inside the LLM.
It is.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What about these fusion-based methods?
Okay, so fusion-based methods are like master chefs.
Okay.
They take different ingredients and blend them together
Yeah.
to make a really good dish.
Okay.
So instead of converting everything into the same language,
Uh-huh.
they directly embed the features into the LLM architecture.
So it's a more holistic approach
It is.
where the model is processing all these different types of data
Yeah, at a much deeper level.
at a much deeper level.
Yes.
Okay.
A really good example is Flamingo,
Flamingo.
which uses special cross-attention layers to actually fuse visual features
Okay.
into its token prediction process.
So instead of just recognizing that there's a cat in a hat in the image,
Right.
it can understand the relationship between them,
Yes.
the context of the scene,
Yes.
and even the emotions being conveyed.
That's right.
That's incredible.
So fusion-based methods allow LMs to go beyond just identifying elements.
Yeah.
To really understand the information.
Okay, so we've built these bridges between different types of data
Yes.
with modal connection.
Uh-huh.
But what are some of the amazing things that LLMs can actually DO
Right.
in this multimodal world?
So the possibilities are really exciting.
Okay.
Imagine an LLM that can understand the text of a scientific paper, but it can also analyze the graphs and the images,
Yeah.
and it could even pull in relevant information from a video.
Wow. It's like giving scientists a superpowered research assistant
Well, it
that
is.
can process and connect information
Yes.
from all these different sources.
Yes.
And it's not just scientific research.
It's not.
Think about education.
Yes.
Imagine a multimodal LLM that can help students learn by
Yeah.
presenting information through text, images, audio,
Right.
and even interactive simulations.
Oh, exactly.
That's incredible.
It could completely change the way we teach and learn.
It's like a personalized tutor
Yes.
that can adapt to each student's learning style.
Yes.
Okay, but we have to talk about the real world here.
Right.
What about when we want LLMs to be experts
Okay.
in specific fields like medicine or law?
Okay.
Do we have to train separate LLMs for each domain?
So that's where domain adaptation comes in.
Domain adaptation.
Yes, it's all about taking an LLM
Okay.
and making it an expert in a specific field.
So we're giving the LM.
It's a crash course in a new subject.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One way to do that is using retrieval augmented generation, or RAG.
RAG.
And it's like giving the LLM access to this huge knowledge base,
Okay.
like a specialized library.
So if I ask an LLM a complex legal question,
Right.
it can quickly pull in information from legal textbooks, case law databases,
Yep.
to provide a more accurate and informed answer.
That's right.
Wow.
RA lets LLMs be much more knowledgeable and accurate,
Yeah.
especially in fields that change all the time.
Before we move on, you mentioned something earlier about model merging.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So model merging is where we combine multiple LLMs
Okay.
into one supermodel.
So instead of having different LLMs for things like translation and question answering
Right.
and code generation, we could combine them all into
So-
one super LLM that can do all those tasks.
You got it.
Wow, it's like building a Voltron of LLMs.
It is.
Each LLM has its own strengths.
And when you combine them, they become even more powerful.
Exactly. Model merging could really change the capabilities of LLMs
Yeah.
and make them even more useful.
Okay. So we've talked about fine-tuning alignment reasoning, efficiency, integration, and adaptation,
Yep.
and now model merging.
Yes.
Are we missing anything?
We should definitely talk about the data
Okay.
that fuels all these LLMs.
The data that they're trained on.
Yes, the data sets are really important
Sure
to
thing.
how these models perform.
So where does all this data come from?
So there are three main types of data sets:
Okay.
human-labeled, distilled, and synthetic.
Let's start with human labeled.
Okay, so human-labeled data sets involve humans.
I had a feeling.
They provide information to help the LLMs learn.
Okay.
For fine-tuning, there are data sets like Flan Subnatanst and Dolly 15K,
Okay.
which have tons of examples of instructions and outputs.
Okay.
This helps teach LLMs to follow instructions
Right.
and complete specific tasks.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It is, but it's very important
Yeah.
to make sure that the data is good.
Right.
It's like having really good teachers helping the LLMs learn.
So for things like alignment,
Right.
there are data sets like P3 and XP3,
Yeah.
which provide human evaluations
Uh-huh.
to help teach the reward model.
Oh, see.
So it's not just about giving instructions.
It's not.
It's also about teaching the LLM
Yes.
what is good and bad
It is.
from a human point of view.
Exactly. Human feedback is still super valuable.
What about distilled data sets?
So distilled data sets are like concentrated essences.
Right.
They take these huge data sets and refine them into smaller, more focused sets.
So instead of giving the LLM the entire fire hose of data,
Yeah,
we're giving it a more selective
exactly.
and informative set of examples.
Right. A really good example is ShareGPT,
Share GPT.
which has all these real user conversations
Okay.
with ChatGPT and GPT-4.
So it's like learning from real world conversations
Swayze.
rather than just made up examples. Okay, what about synthetic data sets?
Okay, so synthetic data sets are really cool.
Okay.
They're basically AI-generated worlds
Okay.
that are made by using LLMs.
So it's like using AI to train AI.
It is. It's a very powerful technique.
Okay.
A good example is Self-Instruct 52K,
Okay.
which used an LLM to create tons of new instruction response pairs.
So we're using LLMs to basically train themselves?
Exactly.
That's pretty meta.
It is.
Okay, so we've got these LLMs
Yes.
trained and fine-tuned on all this data,
Uh-huh.
but where are they actually being used
Right.
in the real world?
Okay, so LLMs are already having a big impact
Okay.
across many different domains.
Right.
So in professional settings, they're being used to make legal analysis faster
Okay.
and to speed up scientific research
Got it.
and to personalize healthcare treatments.
So they're not just research projects anymore.
They're being used by experts
Yeah.
in lots of different fields.
That's like having a super intelligent assistant
Exactly.
that can help you analyze complex information,
Yeah.
generate creative content,
Mhm.
and even solve problems that you don't know how to approach.
Exactly.
And in the world of like technical things,
Yeah.
LLMs are being used to solve math problems,
Yes.
generate code,
Uh-huh.
and even prove theorems.
That's right.
And to help us understand things better,
Yeah.
they're helping with recommendation systems
Yes.
to give us personalized suggestions,
Mhm.
and they're even helping us to understand video content.
Yes.
It seems like there's no limit
There are so many possibilities.
It's what these LLMs can do.
It's an exciting time.
They're not just for experts anymore.
Right.
They're already a part of our daily lives.
They are, even if we don't know it.
But as with any powerful technology,
Yes.
we need to be careful and
focus.
think about the challenges.
Absolutely.
So what are some of those challenges?
So one of the biggest challenges is scalability.
Okay.
As these models get bigger and more complex, post-training uses more and more resources.
Okay.
And not everyone has access to the huge computers that you need to train and fine-tune these massive LLMs.
Yeah. We need to make sure that these powerful LLMs
Right.
don't become something that only a few tech companies have access to.
Exactly. We need to come up with better methods
Okay.
that make these techniques available to more people.
What about other challenges?
Another challenge is making multimodal integration really seamless.
So we need to make sure that these multimodal LLMs
Yes.
aren't just a bunch of separate skills,
Right.
but that they can actually connect the dots
I think
between different modalities.
it's like teaching someone to not only read, write, and speak,
Yeah.
but to understand the culture behind a language.
Okay.
We need to develop things that let LLMs integrate and reason
Yeah.
across these different modalities.
It seems like we're on the edge of something huge with LLMs,
We are.
but there are still some things we need to work out.
Yes.
So what are researchers focused on right now?
So one thing is coming up with better training methods,
Okay.
especially for things like cold start RL,
Right.
which could really change how we think about reasoning,
Yeah.
but it uses a lot of computing power right now.
Okay.
Another thing is figuring out how to evaluate multimodal LLMs.
How do you measure the understanding of a model that processes so much different information?
Exactly. It's a tough problem.
And of course, we can't forget about the ethics.
Right.
We have to make sure
Right,
that we're
right.
developing and using these LLMs responsibly.
Absolutely.
This has been an amazing journey
It has.
into the world of LLMs.
Yeah.
I feel like we've just started to explore what's possible.
There's so much more.
But before we go too far into the future,
Okay.
let's recap some of the key things we've talked about.
Sounds good.
We're back, and wow, I have to say my head is spinning
Yeah,
after that deep dive into LLM post-training.
it is.
We covered so much.
We did a lot.
I feel like we were given this roadmap to the future, and the destination is a world where LLMs are like everywhere,
Yeah.
helping us to solve problems,
Yeah.
create new things, and even understand the world around us in
Here's-
ways we never thought possible.
It is really remarkable how far LLMs have come in such a short time.
It really have.
We've gone from these very basic language models
Yeah.
to these really sophisticated systems that can reason and understand so much information
Yeah.
and even learn from their own mistakes.
It's amazing.
It's really incredible.
What I'm most excited about is the collaboration
Yeah.
between humans and LLMs.
Yeah, imagine a world where we can work together with these AI systems
That's what I'm talking about.
and use their strengths.
Yes, like a partnership.
It is.
We bring our human creativity and intuition and empathy to the table.
Yes.
And they bring their processing power,
Yes.
their huge knowledge bases,
Yes.
and their ability to analyze so much information
And so quickly.
so quickly.
It's something we could never do on our own.
We can achieve things together
Yes.
that neither of us could do alone.
It's not about AI replacing us.
Right.
It's about working together.
I do have to admit, though,
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about what this means for jobs.
That's a good point.
If LLMs can do things that humans do now,
Yeah.
what happens to those jobs?
That's something we have to think about carefully.
Yeah.
But it's good to remember that when we've had big technological changes in the past,
Yeah.
it's changed the job market
Right.
and created new jobs we never would have thought of.
Like when the car was invented,
Exactly.
it changed everything about transportation.
Yes, and it created new jobs in manufacturing and repair.
Exactly.
I think the same thing will happen with LLMs.
So some jobs will be automated,
Yes?
but there will be new jobs
Yes.
in things like AI development.
Yes.
training.
And oversight.
We'll need people who can build these systems
Yeah.
and manage them and make sure they're doing the right things. It's like a whole new area of education will appear
Yes.
where people are trained to work with AI.
Yes.
It's exciting.
It is very exciting.
But how do we make sure that these LLMs are used for good?
Right. So we've talked about ethics.
Yeah.
But as they become more powerful
Yes.
and we use them for really important things like healthcare and finance,
Yeah.
The stakes are very high.
Exactly.
We need rules and guidelines.
To make sure they're used responsibly.
Yes, we need to make sure that they're transparent and that we know who's responsible for them, and we need to make sure the data they learn from isn't biased.
But everyone needs to be involved in this conversation.
They do. This isn't just for the researchers.
Yeah.
This is for policymakers, ethicists, and regular people like us.
It's been an amazing deep dive.
Yes.
I've learned so much.
Yeah, it's incredible how much is happening.
But where do you see this technology going
Yeah.
in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think we're going to see incredible things. I think reasoning and problem solving are going to get much better.
Wow. So LMs that can not only solve equations,
Yes.
but also come up with creative solutions to problems like climate change
Exactly.
or healthcare.
Or even space exploration.
Wow.
And LLMs will become more integrated into our lives.
Oh, wait.
Not just as tools, but as partners.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to brainstorm with an LLM
Right.
or get personalized advice from it.
Or even create art or music with AI.
Yeah, it's a future with so many possibilities.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's also a future that requires us to be responsible.
It does.
We need to ask the right questions
We do.
and make sure that these AI systems help us,
Yes.
not replace us.
We have to be careful.
This has been an amazing journey
It has.
into the world of LLMs.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, I encourage you to check out the research we talked about.
Yes, it's a fascinating paper.
And keep learning about LLMs.
There's so much to discover.
The future is full of possibilities.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.